Good morning. As we approach the middle of June, it's interesting to think about how life was 6 months ago. Stores were busy as shoppers did their last-minute Christmas gift buying, and restaurants were full as people were enjoying the holiday season. Unemployment was at the lowest level in decades, and the stock market was booming. Times were good. 6 months later, we find ourselves trying to crawl back to normal after the coronavirus brought Michigan, the nation, and the world's economy to its knees. This morning, we'll get a business perspective on where we are today. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, life as we expect it to be is far from normal, but we do appear to be heading in the right direction. Businesses are reopening, but in many cases at reduced levels because of restrictions imposed by state government. The mission of the Lake Superior Community Partnership is job creation and economic development, and that will be a big challenge as we hope things will return to at least near normal. Here to talk about those challenges this morning is the CEO of the LSCP, Amy Klickner. Like a lot of us, Amy has been sheltered at home for a couple of months, so before we got down to discussing the challenges ahead, I asked her what she's been doing apart from work to entertain herself.
Well, I'm just grateful that it's nice enough to be outside when we're not working. I think the most difficult times were the times where, it was the weather wasn't well, but I've become a professional puzzle maker and I'm back to cooking and baking. So doing a lot of things that I haven't done in a really long time and spending time with my family. And so it hasn't been all negative. There's a lot of positives, I guess, from having this unique experience.
I've done a lot more reading, and I don't know how many books I've read, but anyway, what are the kind of things you've missed most as you've been forced to stay at home?
So being someone who's an extrovert, I really miss a lot of the social interaction. I miss simple things like a hug from someone or a handshake or a room full of people, to talk with. So that's been, I think, the hardest part for me. And with the partnership, we do so many events and so many networking things that those are some of the things that I really, really miss. I also miss just going to a restaurant or going to church. Different things that we have not been able to do. And I think I fully appreciate so much more now than I did before.
Yeah, I think a lot of us will be anxious to do those things when we get the opportunity. Let's talk about the organization, LSCP. Uh, you've been working from home like a lot of other organizations, I understand.
Yes, so I'm really proud of our team. We pivoted very, very well to remote work. I mean, again, it's new for everybody. You don't know how it's going to work out, but we have been so crazy busy. I feel like we've punched out a year's worth of work in the last 3 months just because of the crisis. And in particular, the small business that are such in need and have been struggling so much for the last 90 days. We really have put a lot of effort into focusing on those things. We're not doing any of the events. We don't have any of those. So 100% of our marketing, our business development has all been with businesses. As a matter of fact, we've served over 700 businesses so far this year, which is interesting because typically our annual goal and our metrics, we do about 500 to 515 a year. And we've already worked with 700 businesses, just so much need out there to help them get through so that they can survive and then start thriving again.
I know a lot of work, that your organization does is done from an office, and it's fairly easy to move an office to home. But I know you do depend on some personal contact too. Has that been a problem at all?
It hasn't been as much of a problem as I thought it would. Obviously in economic development, relationships are key to everything we do. And we've always learned that, being face to face with someone, across the desk from someone, having lunch with someone builds a stronger relationship. But I think some of the things that we're learning is doing this remotely, we can still build relationships as well. And I think some of the things that I've found with different businesses that I'm working with, or different committees I'm on, or boards that I'm on, I'm finding that I'm getting to know people probably even better than if we were at a table, because everybody is such their authentic self right now. None of us have our hair cut and we're turning grayer and, baseball caps on and, the dog jumping on the lap, baby crying in the background. I don't know. I think that it surprised me that we can still build and get to know people through technology.
You mentioned serving the businesses over 700. What kind of services are they looking for now? Has that changed?
It has changed. So when we originally started, it was, working with them on some crisis management type things like, how do you, working with your utility companies, working with your landlord, working with your banks, what do you do to put off some of the monthly costs that you have since you don't have revenue coming in. When that's moved along, now it's reopening and preparedness. What are you preparing for? What do you need to do for reopening? What's your preparedness and recovery plan that's required, by the state? All of those things. And where do you source PPE? The PPP program, from a loan perspective, the banks have done a tremendous job of getting dollars into the businesses' hands. And so, now we'll be working with the forgiveness part. How do you report that? How do you get your PPP loans forgiven? And then it's going to be recovery. We are just in the beginning of reopening. We haven't seen a rebound yet. And then the stage for recovery, I don't see us in full recovery till probably 2022 at least.
I'll be back with more of our conversation with our guest after we take this 2-minute break. Returning to our conversation with Amy Klickner from the LSCP, we learned that technology plays a big role in working from home, and her organization has used the internet to provide training for their members and clients.
So the nice thing about the technology is our webinars have also increased tenfold over last year of attendance, but we're able then to bring resources to a larger audience. So we've had folks from the Labor and Economic Opportunity Department, MIOSHA, talking through, what do you need to do for reopening? How does the PPP work? How does the Workshare program work? We've had folks from the health department on talking about what does it look like to reopen, and manpower on, different types of things that you have to do in reopening. Some of the real popular ones up front were, we've had Laura Riley has been on a couple times, and Ruth Zielinski talking about HR and employment law. I mean, there's just been so many questions about, how do I manage my employees, laying them off, bringing them back? What if they don't want to come back? What are my responsibilities? What are my risks? And for small business, they don't have an HR department or a legal department to go to necessarily. So I think those have been some of the real popular ones up front, just to get people comfortable with what they can and can't do.
What are you finding now as we're about to reopen? I know you and your organization and others in northern Michigan were an advocate for getting the state reopened. I'm sure you were pleased to see our area open first, but are we moving along that path fast enough now, do you think?
So we were grateful that a regional approach was taken finally, with Region 6 and Region 8. And a lot of people working behind the scenes to say, hey, give us a chance to be the pilot. We can do this, we can do it right, we can be an example for the state and the other regions. What I was surprised to find out is, we started taking some of those steps, but when you look at a 50% capacity rate for a restaurant in particular, that's still tough. And so, you're seeing a lot of restaurants that are sticking with the curbside and delivery right now and not opening their dining. Some are, and some are moving in that direction. But others are saying, hey, 50%, I can't make it work on 50%. So I was surprised about that. So yes, I'm grateful we've opened. Now and we've proven we can do it. We need to get to full open, because truly all the Band-Aids we provide to the businesses, and in particular small business, are good, but truly what they need is to be able to reopen at 100% to get back on track.
I did have a chance to talk with Jim Johnson from Casa Calabria about the issues the restaurants are experiencing, but other businesses are experiencing some challenges too. Do they feel they're going to be able to operate successfully with those restrictions?
You know, I have to say that again, so impressed with our business community because they are very positive and they are figuring out innovative ways to make this work. So I'm not hearing anybody saying, ah, it's never going to work. I can't do it. They're just saying, I can do it. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to keep everybody safe. Yes, is it an inconvenience? Absolutely. But they can do it. They're doing it. It's the new world we live in. I think one thing that, you know, we try to remind even the general public is this is new for all of us. So, and I'm sure, you know, talking with Jim, they've done a wonderful job of, you know, starting with their curbside and then now opening the restaurant. But this is all new. And so we all have to be patient with each other as well, because these small businesses are learning all new ways of doing things. I mean, TJ Maxx just opened this week as an example, and they said that they had their 100-person capacity enter in 8 minutes.
Hmm.
So, you know, people want to get out there, but again, there's a line, it's one in, one out. They're sanitizing, you know, counters after every person, just like a restaurant's going to take longer to flip a table. And when we get back into hair salons, it's going to have, you know, time frames in between where they have to sanitize everything. We need to be patient with that. And we need to understand that that is our world right now. And they are just following what they need to do to keep themselves and us safe.
It seems paradoxical, but one of the issues now is we have probably the highest unemployment rates ever, yet we have businesses that can't find employees. Is your organization, or are there other organizations that are able to work with businesses to try to help them through that particular crisis?
You know, and you're right, it is very interesting. I mean, we're over 20% unemployment right now in Marquette County, and people are looking for employees. So we worked with the Upper Peninsula Michigan Works, Staying Decision Systems and Manpower, and we kicked off what's called hashtag Keep Up Working. And it's on all of our websites. And it's just information to remind people that you know, working is important. There's jobs out there from janitor all the way, you know, to nurse and in between that they're looking for. It lists job opportunities, it lists job boards. And then it's just a way to try and help those that are trying to hire during this difficult time. You know, obviously with the CARES Act, we've seen, you know, additional funds from the federal government for unemployment, which are helping those that aren't at work. But again, we do need to get those folks back to work as soon as possible to keep the economy going.
When we return, we'll learn about a special LSCP program that's intended to help boost the local economy. Our guest this morning is Amy Klickner, CEO of the Lake Superior Community Partnership, and I asked Amy to tell us about a program they started called Love on Local Card.
If you remember, there was the Be Local, Buy Local that the Marquette Chamber had. And when the chamber dissolved, we had several people come to us saying they really believed in a gift card program that could be used at all of our locally owned businesses. And so we did the research on it and we were working on it. But what we did was accelerate the launch of it because of what happened with COVID-19. More than ever now, we need to be able to go into our locally owned businesses and start spending money. So we're going to make it really easy. We've got it just works just like a debit card. So there's nothing new that the business has to do. It's as simple as possible. You can get them online at marquette.org. Eventually we'll be able to sell them in places that are open. We're partnering with the Marquette DDA. We're partnering with the Ishpeming-Negaunee Chamber, but of course right now, you know, we're not selling them physically, they're all online. And we have a lot of businesses that are, you know, going to start using them for like their safety program or their customer cares program and things like that. But again, it's easy, it's simple, it's the perfect gift. You can use it at any locally owned business, and you're supporting our businesses get back on their feet. And to me, that's the biggest thing we can be doing right now.
But I don't think people often realize how much employment those small local businesses can provide in a community like ours. really
Right.
vital.
Yeah, small business can be, upwards of 80% of, what is employed and what is happening in a local community. I mean, they truly are the lifeblood of the community, and they're your neighbors, they're your friends. They may be you, and so just being mindful of all of that right now, and taking the extra time to go and maybe wait in line to get your paint at the local store or whatever it is really important right now to making sure these businesses, start thriving again.
Speaking of small businesses, your organization is now associated with the Small Business Association of Michigan. What additional resources does that provide for your members?
So the Small Business Association, or SBAM as people might know it by, now if you're an investor in the Lake Superior Community Partnership, you get a dual membership with SBAM as well, and that they are incredible. Former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley is the president of SBAM, and he and Rob Fowler there are doing tremendous work. So the resources that I really, really have enjoyed having from there is a lot of what I talked about earlier is HR and legal resources. They have actually an Ask the Expert, so you can live chat with people. And again, small companies don't have an HR or legal department to go to. This provides them an opportunity to get their questions answered in real time. There's other resources there. As a member, there's PPE resources available to members. They just launched an app that our businesses will now be able to use for health screening. So just an app where if you've got employees and they need to, answer their health questions or take their temperature coming in, they can do it all via an app, and your manager or who's ever assigned to managing the COVID process in your business can have it all in one spot. So I mean, they really look out for small business, and I think the strategic partnership we have with them has just come at a perfect time.
We hear predictions now that possibly 25% of businesses could fail as a result of this, small businesses. What do you hear from your small business administration association people?
We will lose businesses over this. If you weren't a strong business before this, it's going to be very difficult to get through this. A lot of the surveys that have been done, a lot of small businesses felt that they could only last, maybe 3 months, 2 months, some 6 months from closure or limited opening. So again, the faster we can get to the point where we can have 100% reopened, the more success rate we'll have. Unfortunately, the truth is we will see some not make it.
Governor Whitmer recently announced the appointment of a workforce development board for Michigan. Do you think that will be helpful going forward to have that kind of board in place?
Yes, well, it is important because talent is going to remain, just a huge top concern and a priority for businesses, especially as we come out of this. Really pleased that Tony Ratasky was appointed to that board from the Upper Peninsula. Oftentimes, when you read the appointments, sometimes there's not even a UP representative. And so I think it was great that he was sought out and appointed to this board. But again, it's how do we work with the state and with their resources to be able to retain and attract talent. And then it's going to be retraining talent too. With all of this, there's so many changes. How do we make sure that, we're adapting?
Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I think for the partnership, I just want to make sure that businesses know we're here to serve you, whether you're an investor or not. There's a lot of great programs out there as you're bringing back your employees, the WorkShare program to help, financially bring folks back off of unemployment and ramp them up. Just give us a call. We're all working remotely and we're here to serve, but we're here to help you. Now's not the time to go it alone.
Many challenges ahead for the local business community, but there are positive signs the economy is already on the rebound. You can help by supporting your local businesses. I'll be back after this break. Well, the way it ended, it was hard to notice, but the school year has come to a close. It will be remembered by students, teachers, and school officials as one like no other. The last 3 months was a major disappointment for most students, as they missed spending time with classmates and participating in school activities. It was probably hardest for those in the final year of the K-12 program. Most traditional graduation ceremonies had to be canceled, although schools made an extra effort to provide a substitute that often included vehicle parades or students participating in cars in a parking lot. Many senior athletes did not get to compete in their final year of spring sports, and most of the winter sports were unable to finish their year-end tournaments. But high school is a 4-year program, and hopefully students can look back to many pleasant memories of being with friends and classmates before the year came to an untimely end. Thinking about this school year caused me to recall my time in high school, which I enjoyed. I liked my teachers, well, most of them. I was a pretty good student, but I didn't finish at the top of my class. I loved sports and did well as a member of the high school track team. I ran a decent mile run. I also got a part-time job when I was a sophomore, when I was hired to be an announcer by WJPD Radio in Ishpeming. That assignment included play-by-play coverage of the high school football and basketball games. The highlight came when I was a senior and led the broadcast team that followed the Negaunee Miners as they won the state basketball tournament. Rock and roll arrived on the scene when I was in high school. Bill Haley and the Comets were rocking round the clock, and Elvis Presley's first hit was Heartbreak Hotel. Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, and the Platters were also part of that music scene. My high school years were an interesting time in our history. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, marking the beginning of the space age race. The Supreme Court ruled that segregation in public schools was illegal, and Jonas Salk's polio vaccine was determined to be safe and highly effective in preventing the disease. And although it's not something I remember, the Asian flu pandemic occurred, although I don't recall it had any impact on school activities, even though the worldwide death toll was thought to be over 1 million, with close to 70,000 deaths in the United States. Well, now it's time for this year's graduates to look back and recall all that happened during their time in high school. We wish them all the best as they transition into a new phase of life. I'll be back in a minute. Time to wrap things up for another week. The Today Show is just around the corner. Remember, if you miss our show, it will be available at uppermichigansource.com. Thanks to Amy Klickner for joining us this morning to discuss the steps her organization is taking to support local business and employment. And I'm glad you could join us. Hope to see you again next Sunday morning.